Now that I think about it, strangely enough, everything started with a cat. My mom had noticed a fat cat wandering around the house next to ours. It didn't take long for us to realize she wasn't really fat. She was pregnant and had made that house her nursery. My mom and I were worried about the kittens. Not only that, after giving birth, we saw that the cat wasn't in good shape either. We bought some stuff for them. Food, some treats, a couple of toys, bowls, etc. And called the house owner to ask if we could go and take care of them, and he gladly agreed. We meet him the next day, so we could discuss the situation. Nobody was living in the house for now. His son used to live there, but because of some problems with drugs, he was in rehab for the moment. The house was fully furnished, but it had been collecting dust, and now, cat poop, probably. So the man was grateful we could tidy the place up a bit while we took care of the cats. We agreed, and he handed us the key. "Oh, before I forget," he said before leaving. "There's a bedroom on the ground floor of the house. My son's belongings are in there, so that room is off limits, okay?" He gave my mom and I a look, silently telling me, "Do you understand?" I smiled, only thinking about the cats. Some time had passed. The cats were growing strong, and I had gotten myself familiar with the house. The bedroom upstairs had turned into my hiding spot. I had bought some snacks, old pillows and blankets, some toiletries, books, and I don't know what more. At home, I had to share my bedroom with my brother. We used to make noise 24/7, so it was nice to have a place where I could be alone in silence. The house wasn't super big, but it was spacious enough. The cats had claimed the laundry room, and basically the kitchen with it. The room I spent most of the time was in the upper floor, and had a toilet right next to it. The living room was nice, but it was too close to the off-limits room, and that made me uncomfortable. The door of that room matched all the others, but for some reason, felt off. Like it didn't belong there. It wasn't like the idea of the room was absurd. It was just the room where the stuff of the owner's son was stored. Of course, the mystery of it was enough to make it seem extraordinary. It was like any other day. After lunch, I grabbed the keys and went straight for the house, cleaned up the mess of the cats, the house, put food for them, and went straight for the upper floor. I threw myself against the soft mattress and took my time getting comfy, grabbing a book when I was done. I could hear the cats downstairs, the cars on the street, and some birds chirping. The sun made the room warm, but not unbearably hot. It was such a nice day. I ended up napping. It was the perfect weather for a good afternoon sleep session. When I woke up, it was already nighttime. It must have been around 7 or 8 p.m. I cursed, thinking my mom was probably freaking out by now. She was used to me being away for most of the afternoon, but by the end of it, I was always home, hungry and asking for food. Shit. She was going to kill me. I got up in a hurry and dashed downstairs, going straight for the door, but it wouldn't budge. Did I lock it when I came here earlier? I couldn't remember, and worse, I couldn't find the keys. Did it fall while I was sleeping? I do move a lot when I sleep. I went back to the room and basically turned it upside down, but couldn't find my keys. I was nervous before, but now, I could feel myself sweating and trembling. I looked for another way out, but all the windows had bars, so that was a no-go. I went to the closest window to the entrance of the house and started screaming, calling my mom and asking for help. I probably did that for 20 minutes, but it didn't seem like she could hear me. After that, I went on a cycle of trying to find my keys and failing to scream my lungs out for what seemed like hours, but nothing changed. No sight of my keys, and no one came looking for me. How come my mom wasn't looking for me? It made no sense. I sat down on the couch in the living room, thinking what could I do? My only hope seemed to be finding some keys to the front door, but I had searched everywhere. Well, not everywhere. There it was, the forbidden door, taunting me. Maybe I could find a copy of the keys there. The owner did say that room had his son's stuff, so it made sense. Or at least I hope so, for a copy of the keys to be there. I shouldn't go there. It was off limits after all. But I didn't want to spend God knows how many hours in this house. I got up and went for the door, feeling myself sick to my stomach just touching the doorknob. I slowly turned it, hoping that while doing that, my keys would just magically appear in front of me. and I wouldn't have to enter the room. Of course, that did not happen. With the door only slightly open, I could already smell the room. It had a strong smell of mold, alcohol, and other stuff I have no idea how to describe. Enough to make me even more sick. I turned on the lights, which was so weak it only added to the eerie atmosphere of this place, and peered inside. It was as weird as I'd imagined. It looked like a hoarder's house. Magazines and newspapers were piled everywhere. I could only see the roof of the room. The rest of it was hidden behind the high stacks of paper. On the floor there was dead cockroaches here and there, and the floor was dirty with a weird substance that I had no idea what it was. Shit. Now I really had to get out of here. I entered the room, treading carefully to avoid stepping on the dead bugs and making any noise. I slowly made my way into the paper maze, following the only trail available that wasn't covered in stuff. More things started to come into view. Cardboard boxes filled with God knows what, LPs, books, and bottles. Some empty, some filled with, I don't know. But they filled the room. Finally, I saw something that looked like a desk. It was probably an antique desk. The red wood looking a bit dull and covered with dust. On top of it was a collection of bottles, like the others on the floor. I could recognize the label on some, lots of different types of alcohol. It sure looked like the belongings of someone with addiction issues. It had 4 drawers. I opened the first one, and it was filled with little trinkets. Some shot cups, bottle caps, some tools like screwdrivers, a lot of nails, etc. I searched each of them, looking for anything that looked like a key, and, for the first time since I woke up, I found a lighter keychain, holding a bunch of keys. I felt like crying, but I had more important business. I held the keys like my life depended on it, closing the drawer and preparing to make my way out of the room as soon as possible. That was when I heard a rustle and what sounded like a cat meowing. Of course, the cats would do this to me. Why wouldn't they? The noise came from a bit deeper into the room. The cats were still small, so maybe they found a way through the stack of papers and other stuff. I took a deep breath and followed the sound, making low psst sounds, trying to get its attention. The room started to feel more cramped. The dim light didn't help me much. I couldn't see much farther than where I was, and the stacks of boxes and other objects made the room a maze. This bedroom seemed bigger than the whole house. Maybe it was. Who knows? When I started to give up, I found the cat. The small black furball looked at me, and I breathed in relief, reaching for it when it hissed, running away from me. I followed it even deeper into the room, reaching probably the end of it, and finally close enough to catch it. Unfortunately, the cat was the last thing on my mind. There was a bed there, surrounded by papers and bottles scattered everywhere on it. Next to all this mess was someone, something, I don't know. It was curled on the edge of the bed. Its hair was a tangled mess, covering most of its body, but the little of it I could see was unsettling. It had dark yellowed skin that clung to its bones. It looked so skinny, like a mummy. It looked like it was leaking some type of goopy, the same I could see inside some bottles and on the floor. And it smelled like a mixture of mold and shit. I held my breath. I couldn't stop looking at it. Was it even alive? It could be. I don't know. A doll or something? But what about the goop? What even was it? How could it smell so bad? What the fuck? My body slowly started to move again. 1 step back, 2, then 3. The thing didn't seem to move, but as I made my way back, I could see it. Breath. It was alive, and hopefully I didn't wake it up or anything like that. When I couldn't see it anymore and was back to the maze, I rushed out of the room, still trying to not make any noise, but honestly, screw that. I wasn't spending any more time inside this house. Fuck this house. Fuck that room. Fuck the cats even. I was standing before the entrance door, trying to stop shaking my hand so I could grab at least 1 key, and try it in the keyhole. There were so many keys. Who thought this was a good idea? I probably tried 3 keys before I found the right one, but when I put it inside the keyhole, I felt it. A shallow breathing behind me, light steps in my direction, the putrid smell getting stronger. I froze up. I couldn't move. There was a large, bony hand on my shoulder, the skin so dry and rough it felt like leather. It gripped me, If I couldn't move before, I definitely couldn't move now. Slowly, I could feel something touching my back, my shoulder, my neck. It was its hair, its face getting closer to mine. I could feel the grease on its hair against my face, the smell of oil, sweat, and mold making me sick. Don't, it said, its mouth practically against my ear, the hot breath making me tear up as I prayed for God to help me. Its other hand reached for mine, the one holding the key, ready to turn it but too scared to. I could see it so much clearer now. The skin looked like a sick mosaic of patches of skin, pale against bruised skin. It was so dry I could hear it crack and clung sickly to the bone. And I was sure there was no meat under it. I gulped, trying not to vomit. Ever. It held my hand and I shivered. Oh my God, I was going to die. It was going to lock me up in this house and kill me. Touch my... It started to turn the key, slowly opening the door. Stuff again. It let go of my hand. The door unlocked now. It was holding my shoulder, its face starting to get closer, and I could see a bit of it. Since most of it was covered with its hair, its eyes looked directly into mine. They were a deep shade of gray. They seemed dull, with no life in them. I could see my reflection as he peered into my soul, my face pale and beads of sweat dripping down. Okay? He whispered, the smell of his breath turning my stomach even more. It took some time, but eventually, I felt it letting me go. I could only move when I heard the sounds of the door behind me closing. Like being released from a spell, I could finally go home. Strangely enough, it didn't pass much time. When I got home, it was still 7 p.m., and my mom didn't look a bit worried. I tried to explain to her what happened, but of course, she didn't believe me. Worse than that, she was mad I had meddled with the off-limits room. Since I refused to go back in the house, she took charge of the cats. She also brought the stuff I had left there back home, and I threw most of it away. I was having a hard time sleeping, thinking about the thing back there. Sometimes I thought I had hallucinated the whole thing, but then I would look at the keys, and it didn't seem so crazy anymore. One day, the owner of the house appeared to make a visit. My mom and him talked happily about the cats. Most of them had found a home already, and my mom had decided to keep the mother. So, I heard you entered the room, the man said, a moment after my mom had left to go fetch more coffee. Yeah. Did you take anything? His voice was low and soft, like he was sharing a secret. No, I lied. Good. You see, my son is really zealous with this stuff, so I got a bit worried. He wouldn't like the idea of finding something missing when he comes back. I gulped nervously. One more thing before I forget. He said to give you something. Here. The owner then handed me the keys. My keys. You gotta be more careful with your stuff, he said with a smile. As soon as the owner left, I went and threw the keys I had found on the table at the house. The last thing I wanted was someone looking for them.